is a new definition of prayer. That is a new definition of prayer that completely redefines what prayer is. Prayer is not the act of asking an external being for benevolence. Prayer is the art of believing what is denied by the senses. In Daily Neville, we break down the teachings of Neville Goddard, making them easier to understand, easier to digest, easy to apply in 20 minutes or less. Now, this is season 2 of Daily Neville. In season 2, we are talking about Prayer, the Art of Believing, a 1945 book written by Neville Goddard on the topic of prayer. And in today's episode, we're going to dive right into chapter 2 of this book titled The Dual Nature of Consciousness. The Dual Nature of Consciousness. Now, this chapter in particular is very revealing. And I think for a lot of you who have been studying either Neville or ideas from this realm of thinking for a while, I think you will find these ideas to be familiar. But Neville's take on them, as always, is very illuminating. So starting with chapter 2, Neville writes, "A clear concept of the dual nature of man's consciousness must be the basis of all true prayer." Now, quick callback to the last episode of Daily Neville, where we talked about how prayer, as the church has taught it, has this kind of invented air of solemnity or parade or vain repetition, which is foreign to true prayer. True prayer happens with a tranquil mind. True prayer is the product of a strong and controlled imagination, and all of these other things that the world has placed on this idea of prayer are misdirected and misinformed. So true prayer is formed, Neville says, upon a clear concept of the dual nature of man's consciousness. Now, what does Neville mean by that? Neville writes, consciousness includes a subconscious as well as a conscious part. The infinitely greater part of consciousness lies below the sphere of objective consciousness. It's like the tip of the iceberg is objective consciousness or everyday waking normal, so-called normal consciousness. And then what is the rest of the iceberg that lies below the surface is the subconscious. Neville writes, the subconscious is the most important part of consciousness. It is the cause of voluntary action. The subconscious is what a man is. The conscious is what a man knows. So the conscious mind is formed of what a man knows, okay? So what I know, my knowledge, my experience, my wisdom, all of my life experiences, everything I've gained from all of that, my normal identity, my normal state of waking consciousness, my sort of state of waking reality, that is my normal consciousness, my conscious consciousness. My subconsciousness is what I am. That's my true cause, my true source of who I truly am. It's my true, deeper identity. Neville says, I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. Now, this is a quote from Jesus. Jesus was famous for saying this. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. Neville also speaks about this in other places. He talks about how the sender and the sent are one, except in the office, right? So it's like, in this state of being human, I am distinct in a way from the sender, which is consciousness itself, which is my source, which is the Father in me. I, in the form of human, am kind of like an offspring from the Father, but I am still my Father because there's nothing but God in the world. All things are one. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. So the conscious mind that I have and to operate is one with my subconscious mind, and yet my subconscious mind is greater than my conscious mind. And that's exactly what Neville says in the next sentence. He says, the conscious and the subconscious are one, but the subconscious is greater than the conscious. I of myself can do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the work. Neville translates this, and he says, basically what this is saying is, I, objective consciousness, of myself can do nothing. The Father, the subconscious in me, it is he that doeth the work. The subconscious is that in which everything is known, in which everything is possible, in which everything goes, to which everything goes, from which everything comes, which belongs to which all have access. Okay, so the subconscious would be the infinite realm of awareness, whereas the conscious is a distinct or slightly diminished. There's some boundaries around what we can be conscious of in any given moment, but the subconscious is the realm of the infinite, so that would make the conscious the realm of the finite. What we are conscious of, Neville writes, is constructed out of what we are not conscious of. Not only do our subconscious assumptions influence our behavior, but they also fashion the pattern of our objective existence. Okay, if you watch season 1 of Daily Neville, you know that we talked a lot about the power of assumption, how our assumptions actually lead to the realities that we know and live in every single day. Our subconscious assumptions, Neville says, influence our behavior. So what I believe to be true, what I assume to be true through my assumptions about the world will influence my behavior because I'm making certain assumptions about the world, and that forms the mechanism through which I interrelate with the world. Neville says, not only do these subconscious assumptions influence our behavior, but they also fashion the pattern of our objective existence. Have you considered that your existence is a pattern? Have you considered that your whole life story, your whole habitual way of being is a pattern? And furthermore, have you considered that that pattern emanates from habits and patterns in your subconscious mind? If you've been on this journey for a while, chances are you've considered this. And if you haven't, this is the time to begin to consider, how are your patterns manifesting themselves in your daily reality? To get a little clearer on this, how are your patterns of assumptions about what reality is manifesting themselves as facts in your daily reality? Neville says that our subconscious assumptions alone have the power to say, let us make man, which he translates as objective manifestations, objective meaning things that anyone can observe, things in the so-called external world. Let us make man, or manifestations, in our image, after our likeness. What if everything you are manifesting, what if all of the so-called facts in your world are products of the patterns of your subconscious mind? That's a rhetorical question. But if you believe that consciousness is first cause, it's not a rhetorical question. That's exactly what is happening in this reality. Your subconscious assumptions exactly are outpicturing and manifesting into the facts of your everyday reality. Let us make manifestations in our image, in the image of our subconscious assumptions, after our likeness. Whatever I'm assuming to be true, let's conform the world to those assumptions. That's what the subconscious mind is saying in each and every one of us. The power lies within each and every one of us, and it is below the tip of the conscious mind. It is in the deep, the expanse of the subconscious. The whole of creation, Neville writes, is asleep within the deep of man and is awakened to objective existence by his subconscious assumptions. The whole of creation, all fathomable possibilities and all unfathomable possibilities, all things are asleep in the deep of man, and man is consciousness, right? That's man is a body, is a vessel for a point of awareness, a point of consciousness. The whole of creation is asleep within man, within the subconsciousness of man, and is awoken into material fact through man's assumptions. Subconscious assumptions, certainly, but also conscious assumptions, although the subconscious assumptions are greater than the conscious assumptions. Within that blankness we call sleep, there is a consciousness in unsleeping vigilance. And while the body sleeps, this unsleeping being releases from the treasure house of eternity the subconscious assumptions of man. the treasure house of eternity. The subconscious mind releases while the body sleeps from the treasure house of eternity the subconscious assumptions of man. We're going to continue with Neville's train of thought here. Prayer is the key which unlocks the infinite storehouse. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Prayer modifies or completely changes our subconscious assumptions. And a change of assumption is a change of expression. That's an incredibly powerful and important, vibrant sentence. Prayer is the act, this is what Neville is saying here. Prayer is the act of modifying or completely changing our subconscious assumptions. And a change of assumption is a change of expression. The conscious mind reasons inductively from observation, experience, and education. It therefore finds it difficult to believe what the five senses and inductive reason deny. Okay, so my conscious mind reasons inductively from what I see through my observation, the experiences that I've had in my life, and the education, what I've been taught to believe and understand as real, how to engage with reality. Therefore, my conscious mind finds it difficult to believe what my senses deny. So if I can't measure it with the mechanisms of my senses, my conscious mind finds it difficult to believe that it's true or real. The subconscious, Neville writes, conversely, reasons deductively and is never concerned with the truth or falsity of the premise, but proceeds on the assumption of the correctness of the premise and objectifies results which are consistent with the premise. So what he's saying is the subconscious mind is creating its own truth. It's creating its own standard of truth. It's not measuring based on observation, experience, and education, which is what the conscious mind operates on. Subconscious mind is kind of running its own game. It's running its own program. The subconscious mind doesn't actually care whether a premise installed is true or false. Now, this can be used to your advantage or to your detriment, because you can believe things at the level of the subconscious mind about yourself. It doesn't ask, is it true? It says, oh, this is the assumption. Let's go ahead and outpicture results to match that assumption. Now, to your advantage is when you can install programs into your subconscious mind based on assumptions that are empowering. And your subconscious mind, again, doesn't ask, is this true or false? It says, oh, this is the assumption. Let's go ahead and outpicture results that match the premise of the assumption. Neville says, this distinction must be clearly seen by all who would master the art of praying. No true grasp of the science of prayer can really be obtained until the laws governing the dual nature of consciousness are understood. Prayer, the art of believing what is denied by the senses. Prayer, the art of believing what is denied by the senses, deals almost entirely with the subconscious mind. That is a new definition of prayer. That is a new definition of prayer that completely redefines what prayer is. Prayer is not the act of asking an external being for benevolence. Prayer is the art of believing what is denied by the senses. Say that a different way. Prayer is the art of believing that something is true that I haven't seen yet, that I haven't touched yet, that I haven't interacted with yet at the level of my physical being. That is what prayer is. That's the new definition of prayer, the art of believing what is denied by the senses. And, Neville says, prayer deals almost entirely with the subconscious. Through prayer, the subconscious is suggested into acceptance of the wish fulfilled. And reasoning deductively, logically unfolds it to its legitimate end. The subconscious is suggested into acceptance of the desired state, which is the wish fulfilled. And then it logically begins to unfold it to its legitimate end. So it accepts the premise and it begins to outpicture from the treasure house of eternity events and circumstances needed to make true the observed world as a mirror of the subconscious assumptions. Far greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. My subconscious mind is far greater than that which I observe in the external world. The storehouse of infinity, the storehouse of eternity is far greater than this limited three-dimensional world that I operate in material reality. The subjective mind is the diffused consciousness that animates the world. It is the spirit that giveth life. In all substance is a single soul, and that single soul is subjective mind. Through all creation runs this one unbroken subjective mind. Thought and feeling fused into beliefs, impress modifications upon it, charge it with a mission, which mission it faithfully executes. Now, when Neville speaks like this, one way to look at this is that we are living in the mind of God. Life itself, reality itself, consciousness itself, our experience of daily life. We are living in the mind of God. One mind. God is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It's one mind, and we're all living in it. And through prayer, we can modify this one mind that we are living in. Thought and feeling fused into beliefs or assumptions. Impress modifications upon this one unbroken, subjective, divine mind. Thought and feeling charge this mind with a mission, which mission it faithfully executes. This is incredibly powerful. Prayer as the art of believing what is denied by the senses to create a movement in divine mind. The conscious mind originates premises. The subjective mind unfolds them to their logical ends. Were the subjective mind not so limited in its initiative power of reasoning, objective man could not be held responsible for his actions in the world. Man transmits ideas to the subconscious through his feelings. Man transmits ideas to the subconscious through his feelings. Man is constantly in communication with his subconscious mind through the medium of energy in motion, emotion, feelings. So one of the ways that we carry on a dialogue with our subconscious mind is through our feelings, through our emotion, energy in motion, emotion, feelings. And Neville says, the subconscious transmits ideas from mind to mind through telepathy, because it's one mind. If we're all living in divine mind and there's only one mind and we're all individual pieces and parts of something that is one, your unexpressed convictions of others are transmitted to them without their conscious knowledge or consent, and if subconsciously accepted by them, will influence their behavior. So that which you do in secret when you judge another is transmitted to them telepathically. Whether you ever say to someone your impression of them or not, it is registered in divine mind, because we're all sharing one divine mind. And if their subconscious mind accepts your assumption about them, it will influence their behavior. The only ideas they subconsciously reject are your ideas of them, which they could not wish to be true of anyone. Whatever they could wish for others can be believed of them. And by the law of belief, which governs subjective reasoning, they are compelled to subjectively accept and therefore objectively express accordingly. The subjective mind is completely controlled by suggestion. Ideas are best suggested when the objective mind is partly subjective. That is, when the objective senses are diminished or held in abeyance. Now, this is a kind of thickly worded sentence, and I'm going to translate it here and make it very simple to understand. The subjective mind, or the subconscious mind, is controlled by suggestion. And it's easiest to get a suggestion into the subconscious mind when the conscious mind is relaxed and open to suggestion. And the senses are diminished. The conscious mind, when it's plugged into the five senses, when it's plugged into beta brainwave state of dealing with everyday reality, your alert and waking consciousness, it's going to tend to reject suggestions that are offered to it. But when the conscious mind is put into a state of relaxation and the evidence of the senses are dimmed, it's much easier to place or plant an idea, a suggestion, an assumption into the subconscious mind. Neville writes, this partly subjective state can best be described as a controlled reverie, wherein the mind is passive, but capable of functioning with absorption. This is the state akin to sleep. Your mind is awake, your body is asleep. This is what he means by capable of functioning with absorption. You're not fully unconscious in sleep. You are aware, but you are fully relaxed. This state takes practice. Neville says this is a concentration of attention. There must be no conflict in your mind when you are praying. Turn from what is, as measured by the five senses, to what ought to be, based on your assumption. Assume the mood of fulfilled desire, and by the universal law of reversibility, you will realize your desire. Very, very powerful chapter here from Neville on the dual nature of consciousness, and in the middle of it, he delivered a whole new definition of what prayer is. Prayer, the art of believing what is denied by the senses. Compelling. What a compelling approach to this idea of prayer, which has been misinterpreted, misunderstood, misinformed for countless centuries. We're setting the record straight. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Daily Neville. In the next, we're going to talk about imagination and faith and continue to develop these ideas and bring them together. Until the next video, imagine wisely, my friends. There's a whole world of exploration of these ideas that I don't share on YouTube. And if you want to get behind the scenes access to that information, you need to join my email list. There's a link in the description below. I look forward to seeing you there.